Hello everyone, we're back with another video in the Real World Rocket series. Okay, so now we are out of the Mercury Redstone flights and we are now into the Mercury-Atlas launch vehicle. As you can see, we have here on the pad. I'm trying something a little bit different this time. I'm going to see if we can cut down on some of our loading times because of the kind of lagginess of my computer. So let me know if this bothers you, but I think this is a good way that we can get right into the video and not sit there while I kind of try frantically to keep viewers interested. So, we are already on the pad. You can see we're using another one of the FASA rockets. This is the Mercury-Atlas. This is John Glenn's first flight to orbit the Earth. I almost said orbit the moon. We're not quite there yet. So let's throttle up. Okay. And 3, 2, 1, liftoff. There we go. Let's scroll down here. Watch this guy get into orbit. Okay, so this is this flight originally took place in early 1962. John Glenn was the astronaut to fly this mission, and a lot of people thought he would actually be the first astronaut in space for the Americans. That turned out, of course, not to be true. But a lot of people expected John Glenn to be the first American astronaut in space and not Alan Shepard. Of course, we have Jeb Kerbin over here. But John Glenn was kind of the face of the program for Mercury, and he was a very popular guy. A lot of his career at NASA during the Mercury program is chronicled in The Right Stuff, which is a very good film. This mission is also pretty well covered in that. So if you want some more information, go take a look. Okay. In other news, we are going to try and get this into a 150 by 100, or rather 160 by 160 kilometer orbit. I understand that'll put us outside of the rendering area for Kerbin, and we should see some much better performance out there anyway. Okay. Some interesting tidbits about John Glenn's mission. Of course, no one knew what spaceflight would do to a human body, and well, except for the Soviets, and they weren't going to tell the Americans. So the space agency, NASA, put all sorts of stuff in John Glenn's cockpit, his capsule. They put in drugs to help him cater if he went into shock, and they put in a simple medical kit. They had all sorts of stuff for his heart rate, and in fact his heart rate actually did go up to 150 beats per minute, which of course concerned NASA flight health during the launch. Alright, 2 minutes, we're going to launch our escape tower, and our booster rockets are going to be jettisoned here as well. Okay, so far so good. Now, with the advent of the Mercury-Atlas, NASA now had a rocket that could get into orbit. Obviously, the Mercury Redstone is not capable of that, and so NASA had to redesign, and well, not entirely redesign. They used an existing ICBM rocket, I believe, to put a capsule on top of. We'll pan up here, pardon the frame rate issues. The Mercury capsule is the same. This is still a one-man flight. And this was the first flight that successfully put an American man in orbit. They had some problems, as we'll cover in the video. I'm just going to continue with our gravity turn. Oh, I kind of was a little aggressive on that turn. That's okay. Yeah, these FASA rockets are really something to look at. They really did a nice job texturing these and modeling the parts. They look like the rockets they're supposed to represent, which is really cool. And this guy is actually really easy to fly. So I highly recommend you give those guys a download. I can put a link in the description for you as well. But they're pretty easy to find. Oh, I should probably be turning. Oops. That's okay. Jeb's a pro pilot. He'll get over this. Right. John Glenn was originally told his... let's see. Oh, I forgot to get rid of that This is Gus Grissom's spacecraft. That's kind of funny, because it wasn't recovered until the 90s, but that was an accident on my part. I left it there. Or did I? Okay, we're just rocketing up towards orbital velocity. FASA is still coming up here, which I don't like. That's what I get for fooling around with my ascent profile. Still not really behaving itself, but we'll see. But yeah, once we get up above 160 kilometers from Kerbin or so, we'll be able to get the frame rate to behave much better, which will be good, because we've been experiencing some issues with that. Why is that not climbing? That's really annoying. Here we go. I know I don't like watching videos from the map screen, but it's easy for the pilots anyway. Alright, let's move over here. FASA is starting to get away from us, is what we want, but let's get a little lined up. I know I'm not supposed to have an engine cut off in flight, but oh well. I'm also going to do something which also wasn't really done on this flight, but you'll see that in actually very quickly. Let me check. Holy crap. There we go. A little overshot that. We're at about 170. The problem with the Unity engine is that it really kind of messed with the computers, and you'll notice during mouse over I can't highlight EVA and IVA buttons on Jeb, although I can still click them. And for mouse over for this, I actually have to click on it to see what it is. So I guess we're shooting for 175 kilometers, which will be fine. Now at this point during the flight, let's get Kerbin out of here so it's not rendering. At this point during the flight, the launch vehicle would have been jettisoned. I'm going to hold on to it to circularize on the other side, because NASA didn't have to deal with lag issues. Well, I mean they did with communication, but they didn't have to deal with the planet loading underneath them. Let's put it that way. John Glenn was originally told that he would have something like 7 orbits. His orbit was good enough. It would take 7 orbits to decay, is what they told him. See how annoying that is? Get on that, squad. Ours would decay in probably 1. It might take 2. Maybe. But he didn't stay up that long, and we'll see why a little later in the video. He said from the cockpit that it was a beautiful view, kind of quoting Alan Shepard. Let's see what Jeb can see. I'm just hitting C on the keyboard to go to cockpit view. Okay, let's try rolling it. You can see the star field moving by in the window. Getting a nice frame rate now. Let's go around looking at the planet. Oh, there goes the sun. Dee 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 dee. That's Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. I didn't use the copyright music or anything. But where is Kerbin? Oh, there it is. Yeah, we're basically tangent to the planet, so Jeb can't see much. That's alright. We'll figure it out. I'm going to warp around to our apoapsis. You can see what I mean about the frame rate getting better. Or maybe you won't, because the planet is so... Alright. So dark. You know, you can see I'm looking at the planet. And we're not getting any lag there. I'm going to point us prograde. That's not right. I don't think we have any RCS on this. Nope, we're just about out of liquid fuel. 50.02. That's kind of random. Boy, I'm just kind of rambling aimlessly today. So, John Glenn was the first American man to orbit the Earth, and his flight stayed up for about 3 orbits. And he was very animated during the flight. Okay, that looks like we're at apoapsis, so let's circularize here. 160 probably, yeah. Well, you know, I feel kind of bad about ditching that fuel, but that's the way it goes. I'm just going to shut persistent debris off so we don't have to deal with all this stuff. Okay. Because that's going to float in orbit forever. I don't really know what happened to the actual space junk if it's still up there. Oh, that would have been bad. If it's still up there or what? Let's put some distance between us and that'll work. Just a titch of our fuel because that's our retro rocket package. Okay. Let's warp around the planet again. Oh, of course. Glenn commented on his passing through, I think it was actually the shortest day he's ever been through, was what he mentioned first. Okay, we're at our new apsis so we can see. See, no frame rate issues at all, we're in green. So I'm going to be sticking with this. I may turn up the texture. We'll see. But just because it doesn't look like it's affecting the gameplay at all at this point. And we might as well see those beautiful textures they put on for us. Okay. So, yes, Glenn remarked that it was the shortest day he'd ever been through. It was like a 20-minute day or something because I launched at about midday. And then he experienced a very short night of about 45 minutes. And as he was flying over the Earth, various attempts were made to get his attention, see what was visible from... Whoa. Is that an anomaly? I'm going to have to check that out. That's probably... I think I know what that is. Spoiler alert! Cool stuff. Screenshot. Okay, I'm going to come back and look at that in my own file. Anyway, various attempts were made to get Glenn's attention from the surface, including things like a ship in the Indian Ocean firing flares, or, for instance, all the people in Perth, Australia, well, not all of them, I'm sure some of them didn't, but a lot of the people in Perth, Australia, turned on the lights in their houses as he flew over, and he was actually able to see those. And, of course, like the other Mercury astronauts, Glenn was tasked with performing some certain jobs while he was in orbit. On another note, the first time I got into orbit, I just sat and I looked at the planet go by. Of course, our texture's a little low on this. Yeah, I'm going to turn up our texture, because once we get outside of the rendering range of Kerbin, and seeing as how the rocket can clearly handle it, oh, looks like Jeb's having fun. Once we get outside the rendering range of Kerbin, the planet isn't so detailed, obviously, and it really, really shows in this video. If you're watching on high res, sorry. Sorry. If you can hear that, my cat has come to visit me. Yeah, there's a reason cats weren't allowed in mission control. Oh, yeah. That didn't happen. Pretend that didn't happen. Of course, John Glenn would have been a little more careful with his... What is it doing? Why is it pitching? Hello? I didn't tell you to do that. Cycle the SAS, see if that helps. It did. Huh. I had the SAS on, but it didn't recognize it. Anyway, yeah, so that's what we're looking at. Looks like Jeb has a pretty nice view to look at. So about midway through the first orbit, I think it was actually towards the end of the first orbit, folks in mission control noticed that there was a warning light going off, that the heat shield and landing bag, they actually had a deployable bag that they fired underneath the capsule, were malfunctioning. There was a light there, and it indicated that it was no longer locked in place. Obviously, you could see how this would be a problem. This package here, the retro rocket package, was held on by 4 straps, something like that. And if the heat shield and landing bag were no longer locked in place, that would be all that was holding them onto the capsule, which, as you can imagine, would be kind of a problem for re-entry. So they didn't actually notify Glenn of this for quite some time, allowing him to continue with his experiments, but he became suspicious after they asked him to check a warning light sometime during his second orbit. Just finishing our first, there's Kerbal Space Center down there. Boy, that is pixelated. I gotta fix that. That's so bad. I'm gonna fix that, like, right away. I also have to remember to turn off persistent debris, because we don't care about that. Anyway, let's speed up a little bit. Our orbit took us about 45 minutes. That's about half the time it would have taken Glenn, which is okay. Everything's downscaled in this game, so... Oh, I forgot about that. Everything's downscaled in this game, so it's not going to be exceptionally perfect every time, which you can't really complain about. Okay, orbital sunrise. That's cool. That's very pretty. I caught that just in time. I like that. I hope it gives me a choice for that as my thumbnail. You know, this really is an extraordinarily beautiful game. Back in character, Glenn saw the orbital sunset of his first orbit, and he remarked that it happened quickly, but not as quickly as he might have expected. Of course, Jeb can't apparently see it. Where is it? No, I went the wrong way. I missed it again. Where is it? No. That's okay. We're not going to waste time messing around with that. But yeah, that is really pretty. Oh, well, we're lined up anyway. Yeah, Glenn mentioned that he remarked quite a bit on how fast days passed. He said it was the shortest day he'd ever been through, and then later the shortest night he'd ever experienced. Which makes sense when you're going 17,000 miles per hour. We're going a little bit slower than that. We're going, what, 6.5, 7,000 miles per hour? No, that's not right. That's meters per second to miles per hour is like 2.2, if I remember. Nobody likes English units anyway. But this thing is not behaving itself very well. Oh, I know what it is. I know why it's pitching over, because I can move it against the SAS, because it's such a small capsule. I can torque it against the SAS, but without it, I mean, it's going to still return to that position. There's our position. That's more like what we should be facing. Hello, SAS. That's retrograde. Would have been about this point that they would have asked Glenn to check his retro rocket, or rather his control panel readings for what his ship was doing. They weren't sure on that warning, and for a long time they didn't tell him, which, you know, you think about that if you want. But they didn't tell him that he was, I mean, they picked these guys because they were smart. So I'm going to try and deorbit this with some precision. So what they did was they asked him to check his reading, and they would have told him something like right here, about a quarter of the way into his first orbit. Or, excuse me, quarter of the way into his third orbit. Of course, we can't see anything. Neither can Jeb. But this would have given him some time to begin making preparations for re-entry. That's probably about right. Let's see. Nah. A little farther than that. Okay. I'm going to try and land pretty close to the KSC. We've got almost no fuel. So let's see how we do. That was a lot of torque. Didn't actually happen. Boy, I can't get this thing lined up. There we go. Alright, let's throttle up. I can't see anything. Still can't see anything. That's what I wanted to see. We're going to activate our engine. That'll deorbit us for sure. Now, the way these fire aren't exactly 100% accurate, unfortunately. You see how there are 3 cones in here? They would have fired 5 seconds apart from each other. Which, oh boy, I didn't do that very well. Oh well, we're going to land near the crater. That's okay. Well, looks like our Jebediah Glenn isn't going to get 3 orbits in after all. He's going to get about 2.5. That's okay. He'll be fine. Let's get so we can see something. There we go. Yeah, I like this a lot better. I think I'm going to go in and change a few of our settings around now that we're getting this figured out. The other thing is, apparently in 0.20, which is upcoming shortly, we've had 0.19 for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. And 0.20 should be coming up pretty shortly. They are talking about, Squad is talking about revamping the graphics and the RAM usage. So it'll still look the same, but apparently it'll run much better. They're talking about 20 to 40% improvements, which is really good for us guys with slower computers like me. So that will be a definite plus. And that should hopefully break right about the time that we get into our Gemini missions, or our Gemini missions, depending on how you like to pronounce that. Okay. Yeah, you can see now that we're below the 150,000 meter mark, the ocean is rendering, and while continents are much sharper, it obviously takes more memory. So yeah, we are going to play around with the settings a little bit for now, and hopefully the rest of our Mercury flights will be able to pull those off in style. Okay, so as for our retro rocket package, Glenn was told to actually leave it attached to the rocket because the 4 strips attaching it to the rocket, which are not modeled here, were, in theory, all that was holding the heat shield and a landing bag, which is modeled in here somewhere, onto the spacecraft. So it was risky, but they figured it was better to leave that on there and have that burn up, which, it'd burn up anyway, than to risk losing the heat shield and, by extension, the crew. I'm going to bring us down so we can enjoy our re-entry. We got going a little faster this time, so we should have a nice plasma sheath forming. Yes, indeed. I'm going to keep it down here so we can actually enjoy it this way. You can see it's actually modeling around this, which I think is kind of cool. They told Glenn to keep the retro rocket package attached until they had hit 1.5G, which I'm going to release now. And there it goes. It was a little aggressive. Yeah, it's 500 meters away. Thanks, KSP. Perfectly accurate physics in every way. As you can see, our heat shield is still attached. Glenn could actually see one of the straps as it burned up. It flopped up and hit his window, I understand. And he was very scared about, well, I should say anxious. They didn't get scared. He was anxious about the, oh, nice. He was anxious about the parts he could see burning off. He thought they were parts of his heat shield. He could see a bunch of glowing particles outside of his window, and as a matter of fact, they weren't. They were just parts of the retro rocket package, which were burning off. This thing still won't go away. There, got rid of that. Should really put a separator on that or something. Don't have to worry about it. Jeb seems happy to be home for the third time. Alright, let's see. How do we do? Are we going to manage splashdown? That looks pretty promising. Yes, we are going to manage splashdown. Okay. Let's scroll up a little bit for the time. Bring us in. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but should be okay. Alright, so here we go. We're going to have our chute open momentarily. Here we are. I'm still working on the mixture of game balance, the sounds. My computer fans are working again, so I don't know if you can hear that. They were really bad in the last video, and I apologize for that. But I'm still trying to figure out what settings work best. I'm going to upgrade the text sharing now that we've figured out how to avoid that lag. So that should be good. Let me know what you think in the comments. I got my first comment on my first video, so that was nice to see. We are going to do the Gemini missions. We're going to do all 12, so that'll be fun. It could be kind of boring, but I think it'll be fun because I'm a history guy. We're going to fly all of them. We're going to fly some noticeable characteristics of each mission, talk about them like we've been doing for the Mercury flights. We are now half done with the Mercury flights. There were 7 Mercury astronauts, but only 6 of them flew. Deke Slayton was removed from the flight line because he had a heart fibrillation. Of course, he later flew into space on the space shuttle, but he became director of personnel for NASA, or something like that. He became kind of the astronauts' boss, and he decided who would fly and when, and who would fly with whom, and who got the what mission, that kind of thing. But if it was me, I'd want to be flying. That's why we play this game, right? Okay, so John Glenn returned after about a 4-hour flight. We are not on that time limit, but that's about right because it takes about half the time to orbit Kerbin as it does to orbit Earth. So that's good. John Glenn asked if he could receive his full flight pay for the month because he flew for 4 hours, which was the limit to receive full active pay. So he was joking with Gordon Cooper, his Capcom, on the way in. John Glenn returned safely. He ended up blowing the door on the aircraft carrier to show that it left a visible mark in the astronaut's hands because, of course, the Gus Grissom thing was still going on, and Gus obviously maintained that he did not blow the hatch, which he was later proved to be correct. Okay, next up, we're going to fly Wally Schirra, I think. So until next time, thanks for watching.